can't save you anyway, but they could use your organs to save someone else. Did I give that example in here? It was on Law & Order. It was a video. They took a guy to court, a doctor to court, and they charged him with manslaughter. What happened is he had two women. One was dying, but they were both dying. This one needed organ transplant. This one's organs were good. She was dying of something that wouldn't jeopardize these organs, but she was dying slower than this lady, so this lady was going to die first, and then this one, he's going to lose both patients. If she would just die quicker, he could get her organs and put it in this lady and at least save someone's life. And this lady was taking too much time. Not a lot, but just enough to make this woman die first. So he took her into the OR and he sedated her, and he took the organ she wasn't going to need. She was just a little too slow and dying, and he put him in this lady, and this lady lived, and this lady died. And he couldn't see why they had a problem with it. He said, no one argued that this one was dying and this one was dying, but this one I could save and this one I couldn't, so I just helped it along a couple hours and saved this person. So, voluntary act of euthanasia, you're close to dying, close, or you're a financial burden to your family, or you're an emotional burden. See, most of you, anybody go through having grandma and grandpa die, or some do? It can be an emotional time. I've seen families never talk to each other again because some person made a decision that ended up being the decision, and everyone else was upset. We don't want them to be on pain medicine. We want to be able to talk to them till they die, and they're just in excruciating pain. They want to die, and that decision is out of their hands. No living will. And families don't talk to each other. So it could jeopardize the medical community. It could jeopardize family relationships with one another. It has a downside. We said this, all 37 upside, all 37 downside as well, people. Well, the same thing happens with passive euthanasia. I don't want treatment. What do you mean you don't want treatment? I don't want treatment. Here, give me your arm. I'll give you a taste of the poison. Tell me how you feel after a couple hours of drinking this stuff. Patient has rights. We all want rights, right? How many of you don't want your rights? Until your rights conflict with what other people think are their rights. And then we have the social conflict that we're involved in. So none of this is cut and dried. So what's on the table then, and let me ask you this in general, we'll get to this on Wednesday before I let you, how many of you think we should at some point under some condition have voluntary active euthanasia, let people be terminated? And how many of you, in saying that, have people that may well be close to that? Not yet. Some do. Okay. And you're okay with it? Obviously, because you said you were. Yeah, it's not an easy decision. It's easier now because we're in the classroom, and we can imagine a time when it does get really close and it has to happen. That's oftentimes people second guess themselves. But that's part of the decision-making process. If we go that way. And by the way, one more thing. Give me 2 more minutes. From here, how far away is it from social policy? All defective people. They're not going to be any good to society.
It's like the old Spartan thing.
The Spartan thing. You know, there's a lot of cultures that do that. There's, in the modern age, a lot of cultures would do that. If you weren't genetically valuable to society, they would just... Any of you see it was on, I think it was on Netflix, it was The Man in the High Castle, what America would have been like if the Germans and the Japanese won the war. And the German policy was, if you weren't the perfect person, they would... And so the leader, the American leader who led the German occupation on the East Coast, his son, turns out, had a defective disease, and they tried to hide it so that he wouldn't be terminated. And the son realized what he had, and he was a good German, and so he made it publicly known and went off to allow them to terminate his life for the sake of the purity of society and the race. Do you think they haven't thought about social policy yet? We have 7.48 billion people on the planet. Another 30 years will be probably another 50% more. There's people out there think about this, and they're people with power. Doesn't take a whole lot to make the law do what you want the law to do. Anyway, so those are the things that are up for grabs when it comes to voluntary active euthanasia. Still, most people think it's reasonable to consider it, if not approve it. But it's not the last step, people. That's why we call this a slippery slope. Any questions for me? So today is all about knowing facts. Again, you're going to see these on your quiz. When we get together Wednesday, I'll give you a couple of ethicists who'll argue one for, one against. If you came in late, let me know you're here, please, and I'll mark you present.